Means that the president is about to order something big in Iran be blown up. We know a couple days ago he was in the Oval Office and was asked if a red line for restarting a hot war against Iran would be U.S. troops being killed. And he said that would be a good reason to resume military operations. There were no U.S. troops killed here, but it seems like Iran was trying really, really hard to kill U.S. troops because they did shoot down an Apache helicopter. We've got the president's post. He says, I've just been informed by our great military that last night the Iranians shot down one of our highly sophisticated Apache helicopters while patrolling over the Strait of Hormuz. There were 2 pilots involved. Both are safe and uninjured. Nevertheless, the United States must, of necessity, respond to this attack. This is brand new. We had been told over the last couple of hours that an Apache was down and that an operational first for the U.S. military was using this drone, this water-based drone. We've got some info on it. It's a 24-foot-long ASV, autonomous surface vessel. They call it the U.S. Navy Corsair. It's got a 1,000-mile nautical range and 35-knot top speed. We don't know exactly how the drone contributed to the surface.
So you've got Peter Doocy giving a little information there on the lead up to the president's comments that Iran has shot down an Apache helicopter and the U.S. will have to respond. We're going to connect with Jim Talent here in just a minute and talk to him about his reaction to what is happening there in Iran. And, you know, Ryan, I keep talking about this. Ceasefire on, ceasefire off, ceasefire on, ceasefire off. I do not think ceasefire means what you think it means.
Well, if you say ceasefire on for a little while, I guess you didn't have anything happen during that period of time.
Yeah.
Probably better than nothing.
All right. Well, Senator Jim Talent can break it all down for us and get us a real crystal clear picture of what the heck is going on over there from United States Senator from Missouri, chairman of the Reagan Institute's National Leadership Council. A lot of pressure here, Senator Talent. Thanks for joining us once again. What the heck is going on over there?
You mean pressure on me to break it all down for you? Well, I think the strategy behind this is pretty clear. I mean, the object of this whole exercise was either to eliminate or very substantially reduce Iran as a threat, and it has succeeded. I mean, first we had the military Operation Epic Fury. And then it's become pretty clear in the last few weeks, to me anyway, that the president is shifting the conflict with Iran into the economic domain. So we've had the blockade, which is really hurting them badly. And of course, Scott Bessent, he's been like a beast out doing all these things. I mean, the latest is sanctioning Novatex, which is their chief crypto exchange. So, in other words, cutting them off financially as well as blocking the exports. And it's pretty clear the president does not want to go back into the military domain. He's going to use economic tools either to cause them to collapse or to continue to constrain their capabilities. So that's the basics. Now, he's got to get the strait open. My preference would be just to force the strait. I think there's a lot of reasons he doesn't want to do that, and so
Why? What are those? What would those reasons be? Because it seems like that's kind of the key here on the home front, getting that strait reopened. What is it? The hesitation?
The one thing I know, and I don't think the White House has confirmed this publicly, is that the Gulf states are really worried about attacks on their infrastructure from Iran's remaining inventories. And that infrastructure could be pretty vital, not only from an oil standpoint, but also that's how they get water. They're desalinization plants. I think also it's just the strategy. In other words, the president doesn't want to have to go back into the kinetic domain. I mean, war is unpredictable. And the Operation Epic Fury, it was the right thing at the right time. We had the disproportion of force. It was a tremendous overmatch. But I think he wants to get the region pacified now. I'm not saying that's the judgment I would make. He is seeing a lot of things I'm not seeing. So if he doesn't do that, then he needs a diplomatic solution. And what he's doing is, I mean, he's squeezing them with the blockade and offering them some kind of a carrot, and he knows how much they need money. So that carrot would be unfreezing assets. I'm not entirely comfortable with that, but I can live with that. What I don't want him to do is to lift sanctions just in return for opening the strait. Now, of course, he hasn't agreed to anything yet. Mm-hmm. So this deal may completely fall through. Now, and I've been busy this morning. I didn't know that they had shot down one of our helicopters. So not only is policy, but also Trump's temperament on this means that we're going to hit him back. I suspect it will be proportionate. I don't think he wants to mount that escalatory ladder, but I'd be very surprised if we don't hit them now.
Senator Talent, I'm going to ask you to crawl into the mind and the anticipation of this mission at its start. Do you think that at the beginning of this that they had in mind that the middle of June would look the way the middle of June is looking?
I possibly not, because I don't know what plans. We know that they wanted to use the Kurds to create an internal force to overthrow the regime. I don't know how much credibility they were putting in that. If they had a lot of confidence in that, then no, they did not, because what they figured was by now the regime would be up to its eyeballs in Kurds trying to hang on. And it made a lot of sense to try that. The Turks are really worried about the Kurds, though. I mean, they do not want a separate Kurdish nation, either de facto or certainly not de jure. So they ended up not pursuing that. And so I think the alternative was probably always then to really squeeze the regime economically. And if we do that consistently enough for long enough, the chances of collapse are very high. But in any event, they'll be constrained because they won't have any resources. How can they rebuild without resources, right?
Yeah.
And remember, that was Trump's policy in the first administration. Remember, maximum pressure? And he was starving the regime pretty good. So it makes sense that that's what he wants to go back to now. I again would encourage everybody, as much as we don't like paying the higher oil prices, this has been a substantial win for the United States. I mean, I am very pleased we did this. Now we want to get the region pacified, and then we'll move ahead. We'll be applying the economic power and the diplomatic leadership, and the Israelis will be policing the region to the extent it's needed. And they just did it, didn't they? They just attacked Iran pretty convincingly. Yeah. So you can see the future the president has in mind, right? A new equilibrium in the Middle East, backed up by American economic power and Israeli military power. And we're heading there. And the regime is just trying to focus now, I think, on survival. Mm. So this was a mistake. If they think that they're having difficulty getting what they want out of Trump, which is not surprising. And so they may have felt like, okay, we get kinetic again and we'll force his hand. And if that's what they thought, that was a mistake, because the president does not react well when American forces are struck.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Senator Jim Talent speaking with us right now. Do you feel as though that the United States' intention and purpose and end goal here aligns still with Israel's?
Yes, strategically, there's no question. Now, tactically, the Israelis are dealing with Hezbollah now, which is good. I mean, we want them to deal with Hezbollah. I'm sure that Trump is fine with them. Can
I break in here real quick and ask you to specify for us folks who may not understand all the differences between Hezbollah and Hamas and Al-Qaeda and all of these things? Like, if Israel is now dealing with Hezbollah, why is that a good thing?
Because Hezbollah is one of Iran's proxies by which they were extending influence and power in the region. In other words, and Hezbollah really is more or less their puppet. Now, it was very strong enough to basically to control Lebanon. Lebanon was a Hezbollah satrap, and therefore an Iranian satrap before October 7th. Now Hezbollah has been reduced to a substantial guerrilla force, but it still has the authority to attack Israel, in the capability to attack Israel in the north. So what the Israelis are doing now, Hamas is in Gaza. Hamas has been destroyed as an organized military force, and they've lost half of the Gaza Strip. That's where the border of peace is. The next step will be to disarm Hamas, which is either the border of peace will do if it can get a security force capable of it, or the Israelis are going to do. So what the Israelis are now doing is pushing Hezbollah north of the Litani River and breaking down their entire military infrastructure in that area so they can protect northern Israel, which is fine with us. I mean, that's the role Israel's going to play going forward, is attacking the remnants of Iranian power in the region. But Trump doesn't like that now because it's gumming up a deal he's trying to get. So what you're seeing is a divergence in tactics. And I think he worked it out with Netanyahu, because Netanyahu said, look, they're sending missiles into the country. I can't just not do anything. I don't have any inside information, but it's pretty clear to me. And so Trump said, okay, but keep your response proportionate, which he did. And then Iran attacked Israel directly, and they basically made the same deal. And now Iran has said, oh, well, we're not going to send any more missiles into Israel. No, you're not, because Israel took out very important military infrastructure targets, and Iran's attacks had basically no effect other than to anger the Israelis.
We're speaking with Senator Jim Talent right now. The president has said that, we've seen reports that they have to verify that Iran was, in fact, responsible for taking down that Apache helicopter. And I see a lot of military people have been saying for a while, let's get back to the action part of this, that the businessman-like diplomatic talks aren't going to get done the job that needs to get done, because the Iranians, the people in charge, whoever they might be, are not going to sit down and listen to the reason and have some sort of light bulb moment where they go, okay, this is what's best for our future. It's just, it doesn't work that way. And they want to have more action involved. This helicopter happens. You've talked about measured response and in-kind response. Do you anticipate that we might wake up another morning and see that we just did some serious work in Iran? Are there still targets that are standing where we could have another mission the way we've seen a few times now, the United States attack Iran?
Well, I think they pretty much exhausted the original target list. But in doing that, they've now been watching what the Iranians have been doing or trying to do. So, for example, putting their air defenses back together. Israel hit those. So how does Iran do that? Well, okay, so they have a bunch of different radar sites. So we and the Israelis blew all them up. And now, so they're going through those sites and pulling out, it's like putting a car together from junk parts. So they're pulling out those parts and trying to reconstitute the air defenses. And that's the first thing that we hit. Actually, the Israelis hit it. So there's those targets. There's the economic targets, which we haven't hit to this point. We've been choking them economically a different way. But again, I think, I understand the strategy. This is one of these situations. If I was still in the Congress, I would tell the president, I'm not sure I would do it this way, but I understand what you're aiming at. We've changed the balance of power. We've reduced the Iranians to this point to a manageable problem with the possibility they're going to collapse in the future. So they pull out this Strait of Hormuz card. Okay, fine. This is a wasting asset, and Trump knows this. If he gets the strait open, the Saudis, the UAE, the others are still going to build all these pipelines. They're going to find all these other alternative ways of getting product to market, and they're going to do that pretty quickly. So every month, much less year that passes, Iran's leverage goes down because the Strait of Hormuz becomes less and less important. And I think within a couple of years, they're not going to have this as leverage anymore, because nobody's really going to care if they close the strait. All it will mean is you can't get your product out, which is all going to be sanctioned anyway. So you can see where he's headed with this. In other words, he's worried that additional conflict could be unpredictable. The Gulf states get hit too hard. They could resent that. They could make it more difficult to go ahead with the Abraham Accords. And I just see where he's going. I pull out different statements he's made, like, for example, he said, okay, to the Saudis, he said, we now want you to join the Abraham Accords. In other words, he's not forcing the strait because they don't want him to. And so he's demanding something additional from them. He's using that as leverage over them. This is how Trump operates.
Yeah.
And by and large, it's very effective.
Multi-levels
yeah.
in his negotiation. It's longer term than just the here and now, which traditionally the political concern that at least my estimation of when I watch politicians stick their finger in the wind and find out which way the political winds are blowing, those are often very unfortunate decisions that they end up concluding. Last question before we have to let you go, Senator Talent. If the president put his mind to it and it was the number one priority, the prevailing goal of our mission right now to open the Strait of Hormuz, how quickly could this United States government and its military open the Strait of Hormuz?
I think a couple of weeks is what I was always told. And by open, I mean, there are ships moving through there now. You've probably read about it. They turn off the transponders. I mean, I read 70 ships have gone through, so we're sort of doing this already. I think a couple of weeks until we create enough certainty that a large number of the freighters would be willing to move out, but it could be less than that. You know, CENTCOM's been talking with these shipping companies. They certainly were doing that before they started Operation Project Freedom. One more quick thing. You mentioned the politics, and that's, of course, important. These are all political actors, especially Netanyahu. He's got an election coming up in October, and I think this played into how he reacted to that conversation with Trump. And I think it's one of the reasons Trump said, okay, do what you have to do, because he knows, you know, Netanyahu can't just sit there and let the country get attacked. He wouldn't do it anyway, but especially when he's got an election in like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah. Complicated as always, but you help us understand it a lot more and understand that the deep-seated history of what is all compiling in this particular conflict and how much of just probably a centuries of understanding of how the Middle East works. The president is challenging, it seems, all of it. Everything we've known and understand about the order of things there in the Middle East, the president is basically not accepting that as the necessary future and challenging it. So yeah. I'd imagine it would take maybe a few weeks or so to untangle all of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think by the end of his term and probably sooner, I mean, it's already in a much better position. You notice everybody's wondering what we're going to do and what the Israelis are going to do, because we have the initiative in the Middle East. Now, Iran had it before all of this. And I'll say something else for Trump. He is the first president, I think, since Reagan, who understands all the tools of power that we have and uses them in a coordinated way. I mean, sometimes we can have an interview and I can tell you my criticisms of President Trump, because people are going to think I support everything he does, and I don't. But he has a plan. He understands the kind of power we have at our disposal, what we can do and we can't do, and he uses it in an intelligent way and consistent way, which is why we're getting these good results.
Yeah. The right man at the right time, it seems.
I believe so, yeah.
Well, Senator Talent, you're our right man at the right time here on Tuesdays. We appreciate the time to spend with you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Annie. You're always so encouraging. I appreciate it.
Do my best. Talk to you soon.